He walked in like any other customer and got treated like he didn't belong at his own store. When Dorian Maxwell stepped into one of his newly acquired retail locations, he had no intention of making a scene. He wasn't wearing a suit, didn't have a clipboard, and looked like just another customer. But what happened next shocked everyone in the store and led to someone getting fired on the spot. Dorian Maxwell had just closed a multi-million-dollar acquisition of a trendy lifestyle retail chain, his biggest deal yet. A self-made mogul with a reputation for humility and a sharp instinct for the unseen, Dorian wasn't interested in flashy press tours or orchestrated grand openings. He preferred the truth, raw and unfiltered. So, early one rainy Thursday morning, he slipped into one of the suburban flagship stores unannounced. No entourage, no tailored suit, just jeans, a faded hoodie, and well-worn sneakers. He strolled in like any other customer, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning everything, the displays, the staff, the energy. What he found was a quiet horror. Clothes were strewn haphazardly across tables. Fitting rooms were unkempt, some with piles of discarded items that hadn't been cleared for hours. But the most jarring detail wasn't the mess. It was the staff. Two associates behind the register, locked in a loud personal argument, oblivious to the line of irritated customers forming. One customer turned and walked out, muttering under their breath. No greeting, no assistance, no leadership. Dorian moved deeper into the store, heart pounding. He saw a teen girl attempting to ask a question, ignored by a floor associate scrolling on her phone. It wasn't just bad, it was negligent. This wasn't the brand he thought he'd bought. As he left the store quietly, unnoticed and anonymous, his mind was already racing. This wasn't a mere underperforming location, it was a crack in the foundation. Someone somewhere was either asleep at the wheel or deliberately sabotaging the operation. And Dorian wasn't one to let that slide. Not ever. He pulled out his phone and made one call. "I need a full audit. Today. Start with this store." Because what he'd just walked into wasn't business as usual. It was war. As soon as Dorian stepped through the glass doors, the store's atmosphere shifted, but not in the way he expected. The floor was quiet, music low, a handful of customers browsing half-heartedly. But the manager, a woman with a tight bun and tighter expression, let's call her Karen, locked eyes on him instantly. She didn't smile, didn't say hello. Instead, she leaned toward a nearby associate and muttered something, casting glances his way as if he'd walked in with a ski mask. The employee looked up, giggled nervously, then ducked away, to the back. Dorian pretended not to notice. He moved through the store slowly, taking in the displays, mentally noting the dust on the shelves, the clearance tags slapped carelessly on high-end items, and the lack of energy in the room. He picked up a premium leather wallet, one of the brand's signature products. The stitching was impeccable, one of the few things that seemed in order. That's when she pounced. "Can I help you with something?" Karen asked sharply, materializing at his side. Her arms were crossed, mouth pinched. Dorian looked up, calm and collected. "Just browsing." She narrowed her eyes. "Well, if you're not planning to buy anything, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." For a moment, silence. Dorian blinked, registering the absurdity of what he'd just heard. He wasn't loud, he wasn't disruptive. He hadn't even spoken to anyone. He was a customer inspecting merchandise, and yet he was being profiled like a trespasser. "Is that how you treat all your customers?" he asked evenly. Karen let out a scoff, rolling her eyes. "I know trouble when I see it." The words hung heavy in the air. Dorian tilted his head slightly. "Interesting." Karen raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" He offered a half smile. I was planning to meet the staff here next week. I figured I'd get an unfiltered look first. He reached into his hoodie and pulled out his wallet, then his business card. Karen's face paled as she read it. Dorian Maxwell, CEO. Her mouth opened, then closed again. I'll be scheduling a formal review, he said, turning toward the exit. And next time, Karen, try leading with a welcome, not a warning. He left the store in stunned silence, already dialing his regional director. This wasn't just a personnel issue. It was a wake-up call. Dorian didn't raise his voice, he didn't argue, and he certainly didn't gloat. That wasn't his style. Instead, he calmly reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and made a quick call. Just 5 words. Send the district supervisor here. Then he hung up. Karen, unaware of the gravity of what had just happened, stood stiffly beside him, arms still crossed, though now her posture faltered slightly. Dorian didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue, and he certainly didn't gloat. That wasn't his style. Instead, he calmly reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and made a quick call. Just 5 words. Send the district supervisor here. Then he hung up. Karen, unaware of the gravity of what had just happened, stood stiffly beside him, arms still crossed, though now her posture faltered slightly. She fidgeted with her name badge, watching him like he was a problem waiting to be escorted out. 20 minutes later, the store's front doors opened again, this time with authority. In walked the regional manager, Monica, a sharp, efficient leader known for her no-nonsense demeanor, flanked by 2 senior staff members from corporate. Their faces were a mix of concern and confusion. They hadn't been told why they were summoned so urgently, only that it was serious. Very serious. Dorian stood near the register now, casually leaning against the counter. As they approached, he straightened and offered a nod. Thank you for coming on such short notice, he said evenly, his voice cool but commanding. Meet your newest store manager. He motioned to a young associate near the back, a woman named Alina, who had quietly helped a customer while the rest of the staff had ignored them. She looked up, wide-eyed. Karen's mouth fell open. What? Then it clicked. Her gaze darted between Dorian and the corporate suits. This is your store? She asked, voice trembling. Dorian met her stare without flinching. This is one of them, he said. I own the entire company. The silence that followed was suffocating. Karen's face drained of color. Her defiance melted into disbelief. She opened her mouth, then closed it, as if unsure what apology could even begin to fix the damage. Dorian turned to Monica. I want a full review of this location. Staff performance, customer complaints, sales trends, the works. I want it clean, efficient, and welcoming by the end of the week. He then looked back at Karen. You judged someone based on appearance. You disrespected a paying customer. Worse, you created a culture that encourages that kind of behavior. That ends today. Alina stepped forward, still stunned. Sir, I don't know what to say. You earned it, Dorian said simply. You did your job with integrity, even when no one was watching. Karen was led to the back office. Dorian never raised his voice. He didn't need to. The message had been delivered, loud and clear. Dorian didn't raise his voice or show a hint of anger. He simply pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and said 5 calm words. Send the district supervisor here. Karen looked confused but still dismissive, unaware of the storm about to hit. 20 minutes later, the front doors opened, and in walked Monica, the regional manager, along with 2 senior staff members from corporate. Their expressions were tense. They hadn't been briefed, only told to come immediately. Dorian greeted them with a nod, and turned slightly toward the back of the store. "Meet your newest store manager," he said, gesturing toward Alina, the quiet associate who had been the only one actually helping customers. Karen's face drained of color. "This is your store?" she asked, her voice cracking. Dorian met her eyes without hesitation. "This is one of them. I own the entire company." The silence was deafening. Karen's confidence shattered in an instant. Her earlier hostility was now replaced with fear. She stepped back slightly, mouth ajar. Dorian continued, "A business is only as strong as the people representing it. Today you represented everything we don't stand for." He turned to Alina and added, "You represented exactly what we do." And just like that, everything changed. The story didn't stay in that store. Unbeknownst to Karen, one of the younger employees had filmed part of the tense exchange from behind a clothing rack. The video captured Dorian's calm words, Karen's sharp tone, and the shocking moment when the company owner revealed his identity. The employee, recognizing its significance, posted it to social media with the caption, "The CEO just walked in, and justice was served." Within hours, it went viral. Millions watched as Dorian stood his ground, not with anger or ego, but with quiet authority and unshakable composure. Comments flooded in from all over the world. People praised him not only for confronting prejudice, but for the way he handled it, with grace, clarity, and purpose. Journalists called. News anchors shared the clip. Hashtags trended. And eventually, Dorian agreed to sit down for a short interview. "I didn't fire her because she didn't know who I was," he said. "I fired her because she didn't care who anyone else could be." If you believe leadership is about actions, not titles, like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that matter.